Hi, my name is Keith Woodall. In 1972, Vicki and I came to the Richmond-Danville region of the Eastern Townships of Quebec. I had found a job as a teacher, and I was also looking for work as a musician. Through my contact with experienced musicians such as Malcolm Knowles and Bernie Lefebvre, I learned all that I needed to know about traditional music and modern-day country. After the jobs playing dances, we would often go to restaurants like Chez Therese in Richmond. It was there that Vicki and I would hear stories about dance halls that had disappeared. Dance halls that were very popular during the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and into the 60s. Dance halls that these experienced musicians had played at. They were interesting stories. In 2007, Vicki and I decided to make a video to record some of these cherished memories about these dance halls. We'd like to thank the dancers and the musicians who have shared their cherished memories of those dance hall days. We would also like to thank the Townshippers Foundation for their generous startup grant that they offered us.
Hold your horses here, we have a second call.
Hey, Brock from Denison Mills, and I was a teacher, and now I'm retired and I'm at the Wales home. When my son was in his teens, he and a group of his friends used to come out to the house, and we had dances, and they had a good time. Their parents had to bring them, and my husband played the violin and Glenn played the piano. At a certain time, probably 10:30 or so, we'd serve a lunch. Probably the parents would bring some in, or maybe I would do it on my own. And they seemed to enjoy it. One night, one of them said to me, "Mrs. Brock, how come that you disrupt your whole home so that we can come and have a good time?" And I said, "I know where you are and what you're doing." So I said, that's one of the reasons why.
We didn't have any place to go, like the Farmers Hall or places like that. So the dances used to be in the homes. They'd take maybe the furniture out of one room, and that's where we'd go for parties, and we'd have dances there.
So the house party was the important meeting place.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember people playing at these parties, or?
I don't remember particularly the people that played, but if people would go to the party and they would have their violin, somebody would play the piano, and it was not really an orchestra, it was just hometown music that was played there.
And everybody had fun.
Everybody had fun. Sometimes they might have something to eat after, or partly during the evening, and be late at night before we'd get home.
I went to house dances right just in my neighborhood. I lived near Denison's Mills at the time, and we used to go to the Reef House was the first one I remember going to, and they were playing. I had a violin. Guy Andrews played the violin, another neighbor, and Willie Brock also played, and we danced. I also went with Dad and my stepmother. I was about 10 years old. So we always had a lunch afterwards. And there wasn't too much drinking in them days, but once in a while some of the older men would take a drink. us kids would dance with each other, you know, the same as they would nowadays, I suppose, but we had great times. Usually it was waltzes and foxtrots, and of course, if there was plenty of us, we'd have a set or two of quadrilles. My dad would. He was the great caller for the time. And he called then later when we went. He didn't need a horn because he had a good voice. They said they used to be able to hear him a mile or two away.
What I do remember is going to Spencer Brock's place quite a bit as a kid. Because when they would have house parties there and dances, us kids would be there and we'd have our own little shindig, and Glenn Brock would be playing the piano, and I remember growing up there the most. Those are the dances.
Small community halls dotted the countryside. Dances were held in these halls on a regular basis, generally to raise money for the organizations that ran these halls. The clientele was local, and people of all ages would come to these halls to dance. The fiddle was king, and many a young musician learned their chops playing at these halls.
Folks, I am standing on Prince Albert Street in Danville, Quebec. To my right, which would be your left, this is where the Farmers' Hall used to be. And what I can remember is going to oyster suppers and dances in this hall. And they want me to do a dance.
The Farmers' Hall in Danville?
Yeah, it was quite a thriving place back in the late 30s and 40s and 50s, part of the 50s. And it was about the only entertainment there was in Danville at that time.
It was an important place.
Important place, yeah, as far as entertainment is concerned. There was no drinking in the hall other than soft drink and coffee, but, especially at intermission. But at intermission, nearly everybody went outside. Not everybody, but I mean, the people who like a drink went out, wanted a beer or a hard drink.
Pease Dance Hall. It's located upstairs. You can see the two windows. It's above Gaétan Boissonneau's garage.
Fee Hall was not going up in there for every weekend. It was only once a while. I suppose. As far as I remember, that was a long time ago. I had about 12 years old at that time. I was not very old at that time.
This is Pease Dance Hall. It's now being used as a storage place for Gaétan's garage. As you can tell, all the tires here. I suppose the people came up here, checked their coats here, joined their fellow dancers over here, and probably bought something at the restaurant down there. You can still see some of the hardwood floor. Just imagine how many people climbed these stairs to perform their music. It's a pretty large stage.
Would you tell us about the Fees Hall? What was that place like?
That was a large, huge hall, and it was kind of a hard place to play.
Was it electric in there, or was it?
We didn't have any amplifier. They had electricity, oh yeah.
But your band wasn't
We
electrified.
weren't like amplified, but we did get a good turnout. We just played there once. And I think we've had many dances over the years, different other orchestras.
There used to be a hall in Melbourne called Fees Hall, upstairs over Grars on the corner, right near your house. And I played there with one time when I was 6 years old, or 7, maybe 6 or 7. Made $2. Amazing. And Lloyd Norris played there, and John Hawker. Lloyd Norris was a fairly interesting musician in that area around from Kirkdale, Alberton, Kirkdale area, because he had a one-man band. He used to play drums, and he had harmonicas attached to his head, and he had other, I can't remember all the instruments, but he had a bunch of instruments. He used to play everything all at the same time, and it was quite interesting. And at Fees Hall he used to play drums. And as I say, John Hawker. I don't know who else. And Oliver Searle would play fiddle. Oliver Searle was the main fiddle player in the Richmond area at that time. Older man. When I was little, he was old. So he was, but he was a very good fiddle player.
Saturday night, old-time music. Lots of people played here. Lots of fiddle players, piano players. I was able to catch the tail end of this. Warren Fleming and Billy Fleming and White Billy and Black Billy and all sort of well-known fiddle players would gather here. And my aunt on the piano, Aunt Bertha Granger, and Robert Dunn on the guitar, and Galen Johnson on tenor banjo. Frida Johnson sometime would play piano. Steve Perkins would call here. Hart Fowler, Darrell Granger, Harold Gunter, all kinds of callers. And it was for the family. Little kids would come here on Saturday night at the end of the evening around 12:30. They would serve a lunch of sandwiches and coffee and Kool-Aid for the kids, and sometimes some of the kids would be sleeping on the benches, and pack up and go home and turn around and come back in 2 weeks. The following week after this would be at the Oddfellows Hall in South Durham. Same thing, same crowd, same bands, same musicians. Old-time country dance. There's not much left.
Well, every community had a community hall of some sort. Usually it was a schoolhouse that they either didn't use anymore, or they moved the seats away or whatever, and they would get together for their, harvest suppers, their chicken pie suppers, their strawberry socials, their this and that, and all those kind of things that the local rural people would go to. And Gallop Hill School was one of these places. It was rather small, schoolhouse, rural schoolhouse that wasn't used anymore. And they would have parties of all sorts there, like I say, strawberry socials, chicken pie suppers, and that sort of thing. And they would always have a dance following these things. Most of these social gatherings always ended with a dance. This was the pièce de résistance, was the last thing of the evening. And they had them, Bertha Granger played, was a local person, lived just down the road, played there. And the Johnsons, Frida and, can't remember his name, Johnson played there, and Herbie Stevens. Herbie Stevens was a violin player, fiddle player from Melbourne area, Kingsbury, and he was very good, very smooth violin player, and he would play with them, and I played occasionally guitar with them, rhythm guitar, and that was about it. They, I don't know many other people. We knew everybody that went, and if they had these dances in the winter, of course, they always had to heat this building with wood stoves, and they. I remember one particular time when there was a square dance going on, and the wood stove, the pipes fell down. Big problem. Big problem in case it would have caught fire, the whole works would have gone. But anyway, some of the big guys like Ross Carson and them whipped the stove out, pipes and all, threw it in the snowbank, kept on dancing.
My name is Darrell Granger.
Yes.
My mom was Bertha, who played at a lot of the dances at Kingsbury, Gallop Hill, and South Durham. As long as I can remember, when I was growing up, we were at these dances every Friday on Saturday night. It would be either at Gallop Hill or South Durham, one night or the other. I was 7 or 8 years old, I was square dancing, and then I guess probably when I got to be 10 or 11, I started picking up on the calling. And in Gallop Hill, it was Aubie Wilkins and Doug Smith. They were the two callers I can remember. There might have been more. I know Art used to call once in a while, but he was never a regular caller at these dances. Mom played with Herbie Stevens and Fleming, Warren Fleming, for years and years and years. They played together, and he was in Montreal, so most of the time it would be probably 8 o'clock before the dance was get going, because he had to come out from Montreal. But as long as I called, it was always Herbie Stevens and Mum that played the piano and the violin. Once in a while they'd get a banjo. Galen Johnson and his mother used to play banjo once in a while. I can remember them being there, but only at Gallop Hill.
When I played at Gallop Hill, I used to play with my dad, Fred Clark, and Beatty Roberts. Beatty Roberts, she played the piano, and Fred Clark, he played the fiddle, and I was on the guitar, and my dad was on the guitar. And I was 11 years old when I started playing up there. The Oddfellows Hall, that was right by that little church on the hill there.
Yes, yeah. Did you play there?
Yes. We started, just a minute now, I'm just trying to find you to make sure. Yeah. Yeah, in 1965 we played there. There was Bernard LeFay, Dennis Keenan, Robert Dunman played once in a while, and Wayne Melbeff used to come down and play the snares with us. And we played there, well, it was mostly during the winter when we did play. There was a couple of times it was cancelled on account of snowstorms. And I think we played down there, I think it was almost a year and a half, I guess. Well, for me, I used to like the dance halls. I found, you had more fun there. It was a good time.
In August of 2009, Mac Knowles and the Danville Legion organized a get-together of musicians. These musicians had played many of the small dance halls in the Eastern Townships region. In their younger years, these musicians may also have played the larger dance pavilions that were popular in the Eastern Townships in the 50s and 60s. If they played in the Richmond area, perhaps they played at the Salmon Creek Dance Pavilion or the Roadside Pavilion. Further south, they may have played at Nick Dean's Barn, Burroughs Falls, or the White House that was between Magog and Sherbrooke.
Most of these musicians have fond memories of days gone by and are still making their music today. The Salmon Creek Dance Pavilion is fondly remembered by people in the Richmond region. Let's talk with Jim Belknap first. Jim played many a Saturday night at Salmon Creek with his band, Cactus Jim and the Night Riders.
Tell us a little bit about Salmon Creek, what you can recall.
Well, I'll start with our first night that we played there. We had posters all over the place advertising 9 till 1. Came 9 o'clock, nobody there. I mean, literally, just the band. And as it started to get a little bit darker, there was this big cloud of dust that started to form. Of course, there was all gravel roads there, and they started to come. One car, one right with the other, right after each other. Parking lot was full. We started to play, nobody came in. But you could see outside, and they were popping a beer here and there. And I said, well, we got to move things around here, so we dug out the fiddle. I said, well, maybe we'll get a square dance going. So we got a few bars going on the fiddle, and they started to come, just like that. And why, first thing you knew, the place was full.
A little bit about the kind of music that you would play at a place like Salmon Creek.
Played a little of everything. Fast, slow. What went well at Salmon Creek was polkas, the hot poke, gallows, square dances, of course. You were lucky to get away with 6 calls a night in square dances. That was the minimum.
Did you need to have a caller at the hall?
Yes, we always had a caller. When we first went there, I had a caller from Ways Mills. Went with us, Harold Smith. And he did well. He worked all one summer there with us. And after that, we went with local callers from around there. Yeah.
How long did you?
Played there about 3 summers, that stretch. Stan McGee from Melbourne called for a couple of years because he knew all the local dances, what they were used to dancing and stuff. And then about in the 60s, late 60s, I guess, Royce Feller called square dances for us. He was a local man too. A lot of young kids came with their folks to the dance, and they would stay in the hall if the parents went outside to have a quick drink or something, because you couldn't drink in the halls in those days. And, but it was mixed, yeah. And,
were there older people there too?
Oh yes. If you could get up those steps to get into the hall, you could dance, you know.
So it was quite the place.
Yeah, oh yeah. I love playing there because of the sound. There was never a place that had the same acoustics as that place had. The hall itself had its own acoustics. The floor was spongy, as you have said earlier. It was because the hall was built on piers, posts, and it was about 6 feet off the ground because the hall, I guess, was on a floodplain. But when that floor started to go up and down with the people square dancing, it would squeak because through the years that hardwood floor had separated and the nails had been pulled a little bit, and it had quite a sound of its own.
A sound of its own.
So you had to crank it up a little bit to get about the sound of the floor. They really loved to dance in that area. You know, Richmond, Danville, and the people up on the ridges up there, they loved to dance.
At Salmon Creek, there was the original band, I think. There may have been others before, local people, maybe when they opened the dance hall first. I don't know, I didn't go. But the most memorable band was Cactus Jim and the Night Riders from the border.
Actually, I got started playing at Salmon Creek. That was my first spot.
I was always a musician as long as I can remember. I played the fiddle, the mandolin, the guitar, and when we heard that Mr. Babbage was not happy with the band that was at Salmon Creek, we went to see him, and we were playing in a club. I think we were playing at the hotel in Richmond at the time, and we said, he wanted us to audition for him at the dance hall, and I said, no way are we going to audition. If you want to hear us, come to the hotel. And he refused to buy a beer to sit down, so we bought him a beer. He said, well, I'll think about it, but your price is too high. I said, well, we're not changing our price. If you want us, fine. If not, we're happy where we are. And then I think the next week he said, well, the band I've got, there were only 50 people at the dance. He said, that can't keep on. He said, that's no good at all. So he said, well, come on. He said, we'll try you for a month. I said, well, it's going to be a short month as far as I'm concerned. We'll play 2 weekends. And if you don't like us, fine, there's no hard feelings, we'll leave. And after 2 weeks, he said, do you want to stay for the summer? And I said, no, not at the rate you're charging, because he always wanted us to play an extra hour, an hour longer, because the people were dancing and it was going good. So I said, okay. So we agreed on that, and in the end, we were there, I think, about 6 or 7 years. Salmon Creek was a good place to play. People were very easy to get along with, great dancers, and they weren't a crowd that would say, well, oh, you don't sound like the records we hear, or whatever. As long as it was in tune and it had a nice beat to it, they were happy. And they liked to dance, and they would, we had a caller, Royce Fowler was our caller, and he would say, okay, boys, can you play this? Well, he knew us well enough to know we could play it, but he would, he was in front of the microphone, he'd say, okay, everybody get up, and we're going to do a square dance. So we'd start off like that. And usually we'd play about 4 to 5 square dances during the evening. The rest of the time it was waltzes, 2 steps, and a lot of, and we had good singers. We had, I sang, I was a vocalist. We had Nelson Watson, he's dead now unfortunately, but we had him as a singer. Roger DeRoche played fiddle for us at times. Louis Morel played fiddle, Paul Cody played fiddle, I played fiddle, Bertrand Couture played fiddle, so we had a good choice of violin players. We had a 2-mic deal. We started out with 1 microphone, and then we found that didn't work, so we needed 2 microphones, and we had 2 microphones, and we had our amplifiers. Mine was Fender. Most of our equipment was Fender, and we had a stand-up bass, not electrified at first. Later on, we went to the electrified bass, and electric guitar, and then the standard Martin guitar. They're the famous Martin guitars. They were always there. And Roger DeRoche, he was there often.
So Roger was a player at
He was
Salmon
a player
Creek.
at the time. He played, he followed us around. He was with us at a lot of the different halls we played.
The Salmon Creek, really. I had a lot of people, all my friends, most of them, they were all English people, and I played with them. Danny Aldridge, Norman Mackey, and all these guys, Grant Watson, all my best friends, they were all English people, really. I
guess when you were growing up, a teenager, you headed for Salmon Creek. It was a Saturday night, special night, which was lots of fun.
Plenty of girls around. We enjoyed it. I won't get into the detail too far.
3 summers, taking tickets at the door. And that has got to be 63 years ago, the first summer.
Marjorie Lancaster, and I remember going, my aunt would drive me up to Salmon Creek so I could meet my boyfriend, which today is my husband.
We couldn't get to the dance quick enough, but as soon as it finished, we had to go like hang to get back to Richmond to get to the restaurants. Oh, because they were packed with all the people from the dance. And we came around them corners, I tell you, mighty fast. Dust flying. But anyway.
To get dressed up, and we thought we looked pretty and nice.
We did. We looked pretty sharp looking.
And to go at the arm of a boy, it was very pleasant too. And it was meeting our friends. It was like a meeting place too, with this hall we met this group, another hall it was another group, but it was the basic group that went to all
would follow.
Yes.
And we used to, when we finished at Salmon Creek, if we didn't have hot dogs like Ross did, and when we were at the roadside, we would often end up in Richmond at Vic's restaurant or Lou's restaurant, and that would be our lunch before we went home.
lunch, good lunch, not just a sandwich.
And the poor restaurant, they would say, well, here come the dancers. And they were busy for another 2 hours. They were ready to close up, but yes, yes.
But it was quite special, Salmon Creek. We used to have quite the fun. It would finish quite late. Well, we were young then. And
In the summertime, if you couldn't get to Salmon Creek on Saturday night, that was bad news. It was just a lot of fun, a lot of fun.
Rachel and Ray Gifford worked for many years at the roadside pavilion between Richmond and Danville. They took tickets at the door, checked the coats, and helped with the food service. The roadside pavilion, also called Tommy's, was run by the Menard family. Unlike the Salmon Creek Pavilion, the roadside had Saturday night dances all through the year. The roadside pavilion was a much larger facility than Salmon Creek. Today, the roadside is the home of J.N. Otto.
Norman, the roadside pavilion was another dance hall in the Richmond area. What would you say would be the difference between the roadside pavilion and the Salmon Creek?
The difference between night and day. It was a completely different crowd. At the roadside pavilion, we had a clarinet, we had a saxophone. They liked country music, but not to the extent that the Salmon Creek Pavilion was. The Salmon Creek Pavilion was a place where you could go and sit down and people drank beer outside and whatever, but at the roadside pavilion there was none of that going on. It was a different crowd, very nice, very nice. Tommy Menor was a very nice person, and we enjoyed playing there, but it was a different, maybe 1 or 2 square dances during the evening, and that was it.
So square dancing was not as popular?
Not as popular there. It was a different type of crowd came there.
Did they have a caller?
They would have a caller. I don't remember who he was. He could have been Dave Gifford.
Dave was there for a while.
Yeah, he could have been him, but it was more slow dancing, a lot of popular pop music, a lot of the popular songs, but not the country songs. Not country music songs.
What most memorable thing I remember about Tommy's roadside in the winter, when you're sitting, when the people would come in and the cold air meets the hot air, and they come in with steam, and you couldn't even see who it was coming in, and you could just see the steam coming in, and then the door would shut, and then you'd see the people, and then a few minutes later another gang would come in, just steam, just in a haze. I don't know why, but that
It went on for years like that.
It went on for years, and when you think of Tommy's in the wintertime,
Ray Gifford,
that's what you think of.
Rachel.
Yeah.
They stamped the hands, sold the tickets, and run the coat check.
Run the coat check, and then it was Bertha and Frank Perkins that ran
the canteen.
The canteen for years.
From Danville was coming down there.
To the roadside
to
pavilion.
the roadside, that's right. And this is why we had the mix in there, from the French from Richmond. And Richmond too, we had quite a few English people going up in there. But most of the time, the Salmon Creek doesn't operate in the winter, just in the summer. Our roadside was all year round. So
it was a bigger business.
This is why, the people from Salmon Creek was going up in there during the winter. They have no place else to go. And it was a good place too at that time. At the roadside, Tommy Menor used to keep that very, very nice in there.
We would go up to the roadside every Saturday afternoon and get ready for the evening rush, checking the people at the door, make sure they paid so that we could pick up enough money to pay for the orchestra. And usually there was pocket money, plenty of it, after, because the roadside was always packed full. And the music was really, really good stomping tom music. And everybody was in a
used
happy
to
mood.
sell the tickets at the door, and then if there wasn't too much work, I would go into the checking room and check the clothes in winter time. And then we had weddings we used to cater to at the dance hall.
My brother Dave, he was the quadrille caller, and he was well known around the Eastern Townships. And he called for many, many years. And boy, I'm telling you, when he got up there to call, everybody was on the floor. They would try and start another set when there was no more room, just to hear him call. And then he had this one that he used to sing.
Dave, he was very struck on the St. Anne's Reel and Soldier's Joy, Ragtime Annie, and all these kinds of tunes, and they were like, he seems to sing it in the same time. This is why I used to love Dave. He was doing a very, very good job.
And what I liked about Dave was he was very, he really knew his dances well. And if he'd watch, he'd put his eye on a certain couple, and if he saw someone wasn't doing it right, or they didn't know how to do it, he'd stop the music. He'd go down and he'd explain how to do it. And then he'd get back up and start calling again. So he learned a lot.
But that's really nice.
Yeah, it was a sad day when they made Tommy Menors into J&N Auto. I didn't figure cars could take the place of the good old-fashioned dances, but... Those are really the halcyon days, because of course we had no responsibilities in the sense of we didn't have to pay bills, we didn't worry about where our next meal was coming from, our parents looked after that, and the real world hadn't really set in. We were just having fun.
Well, I guess we were young, and it was just our time to have a good time.
We'd all get together and look forward to something to do on a Saturday night.
It got people out. This was before the days of not everybody watched Saturday night TV, so it got them out, and it gave people a sense of community spirit. They got there, they sat and talked, they danced, they enjoyed the evening. They went home, maybe a little bit drunk, maybe not, we don't know. But it was an evening out, a social evening. And it was a chance to meet your friends, your neighbors that maybe you saw during the week, but you didn't have a chance to socialize with them, or maybe dance with their wife and they could dance with yours. Nothing romantic about it, just a group getting together to enjoy a Saturday night.
Yeah, Salmon Creek brings back a lot of memories, memories that we won't forget and things we won't have today. I like Salmon Creek. Yeah, it was a good place.
You really didn't notice them disappearing until they were gone. If you didn't go to Salmon Creek for a whole summer, let's say, you would never know whether it was going or not going. And the next year you'd say, well, let's go to Salmon Creek. Oh, it was closed last year, didn't you know? So it escaped and you didn't really notice it.
Well, several things, I guess. Television was the first one. Bars were opening up where you could serve liquor in them and they could dance in there. There was a lot of years that you couldn't dance in the hotels. And the whole picture changed. And I think that's what put the dance halls down the drain.
The younger generation didn't generally like country and western music and preferred the pop songs, rock music, rock probably. And they could get that in the clubs. Rock and roll. You could never have rock and roll in a dance hall. It just didn't work. So I think that's why it stopped. I think people stopped going.
We all got married and had families and had to stay home with them. Couldn't afford babysitters, and I wasn't going out lugging the kids and going dancing. So I think that was a big part of it. All the young people that were there had other priorities. We missed it, but that's the way it was. And I'm sorry it lost its popularity. I'd love to go back to it.
I would say that with the advent of everybody getting more cars and wanting to adventure more, it kind of, rang the death knell for the dance halls, which was too bad, because we had great times.
When we started playing clubs, we would play Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday. So that sort of killed the dance hall, because as you well know, when you're playing in a club, you can buy beer, you can buy whatever you want to drink, and the dance halls, most of them didn't have a liquor license, so the drinking had to be done out in the parking lot. And it made it easier for us to play, but it really did commit to the demise of a lot of the dance halls.
Why dance halls petered out was people wanted to sit around a table, have a relaxing sit down, relaxing drink, which was not allowed in dance halls. And that way there was less people coming, and it got to the stage where you couldn't hire an orchestra because of the lack of dancers.
Well, my lawn's almost done. I hope you enjoyed this video. And know that in Richmond, Quebec, the dance goes on.
Dance with me now, come on and dance with me now. We learned the rules at a small town school, come on and dance with me now. The good times we had at Salmon Creek, we danced all night and loved to the beat. Dance with me now, come on and dance with me now. We married young, I was 21, come on and dance with me now. I worked at the chair, I worked at the brown, I guess I'll always belong to this river town. Dance with me now, come on and dance with me now. Oh, give me time, give me precious time, come on and dance with me now. I dance with you, I guess you know, you're the only one, I still love you so. Dance with me now. Dance with me now. Now give me time, give me precious time, come on and dance with me now. Now give me time, give me precious time, come on and dance with me now. Now give me time, give me precious time.